is the official CEO by most people's standards if you Google it. And there you go. Here we go. We're off. We're off to see the wizard. Okay. It's knight f3.
It is knight f3. And once again, it's a Kali system, which did give Anish Giri the kind of position that he wanted in their second match game. It was a slight edge for white. Nothing ultimately came of it. But in an Armageddon game, black has less time to solve problems that white will pose him out of the opening. This is similar to what Anish had against Max Warmadom in their final game of Tata Steel.
Yeah. And we might be headed straight for an IQP battle if the tension breaks and black has an isolated queen pawn. It's dynamic enough that you're definitely going to get winning chances. So that's good. But IQPs have the potential to get real simple, real quick. If we get this structure and black finds a way to orchestrate d4, you can see a lot of minor pieces traded. So Anish is going to be careful here, maybe use his time advantage to keep as many pieces on the board as he can.
Okay, knight e4, big move by Denis Lazavik. Now, in the event of a trade on e4, that's out of the question for white because the d4 pawn is a potential liability. White, I think, just has to keep the tension in castle. And Denis Lazavik brings the bishop out to f6. I like the opening setup here as he pressures the pawn on d4.
Agreed, Town. Population us. Both players playing perfect chess so far. 100% accuracy for those who like to follow along with interesting stats at chess.com/events. Rook to c1 played now. It's a good move. And after you take e4, we're getting a big old simplification.
A huge trade. A massive trade. I don't know.
Anish is okay with it, apparently, but if you take with the queen, you're in an endgame. Even if you have a small advantage,
I don't know about this bishop e6 and rook fd8, and I'm not even sure that white is better here. I mean, the engine is giving a minuscule advantage for white, but see, the problem is that Lazavik has only spent 30 seconds. He's gotten almost all the pieces off the board, and now he plays the right developing move, bishop e6. Rook to c7 is very tempting, but it can be safely met with rook to d7. And with every piece that disappears from the board, Denis Lazavik's defensive task becomes easier and easier. So I don't know. Anish is better. He's got some chances here, but he needs to demonstrate Magnus Carlsen level endgame precision if he wants to carry this one home.
You said it. You said it best. I don't have much else to say. I'm sitting here racking my brain with how this goes differently. I think that, some players have openings in their tool bag that they know they have to use for win on command scenarios. If this doesn't work out and Anish is going back to the drawing board, you have to be a little critical about maybe not looking for something with more dynamics, something a little bit trickier. This is a pretty simple, and it's also an easy position for black to play, right? Because you look at the clock, he's only used a minute.
He's only used a minute, and the big question here is going to be whether white's passed d-pawn is ultimately going to make its presence felt. Can you ultimately disarm the blockade the black has instituted on the bishop on d5? Also, the rook on c7 is a really unpleasant piece. Black is containing the rook, but it's still a really unpleasant position. So Denis Lazavik has to watch his clock. I would trade on c7 and play a move like g6. Make some luft so that you don't have to worry about the constant problem of back rank mate. g6, and I think black is more or less okay.
Yeah. And not even a lot to analyze here. I think g6 is a great move. It opens up not just the luft, but prepares for the king to get involved and help. And what's the forcing way? What is the way that white creates something? You're probably bringing the king to e3. But not a lot going on here.
Not a lot going on, and Denis Lazavik chooses this moment to pause. I think he's thinking about e takes f3, but he finds the move g6. Anish Giri is probably going to bring his king up to f2. Anish's goal here is to keep the tension as long as possible, milk black's clock down, because at some point, flagging, as I said, Anish Giri is not, a noted flagger, but if he's got 3 minutes and his opponent has 10 seconds, and you've got two rooks on the board, obviously he's going to go for the win.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm thinking about the other strategy here. And, I remember an Armageddon battle that Anish Giri lost in an otherwise tame-looking Rook Endgame, of course, you know what I'm talking about. Nihal Sarin against Anish Giri from the Chess.com Global Championship. You and I were in Toronto. So there is something to the idea that there's no increment. Let's get a rook ending where, yeah, normally you would draw, but maybe I just put you in a position where I just straight up flag you.
Absolutely. And now it's Anish Giri's turn to take a longer thing. King F2 is what I was expecting. Maybe he's considering F takes C4, bishop takes C4, and then bishop to C4, going after the F7 pawn. But that feels like it liquidates the game even further, and black really starts to knock on the door of a draw after rook takes D4 in that position.
Yeah, it's F takes, bishop to C4. Couple options there. You could take D4 for F7. You could play bishop D5, and at the end of the trade, though, white wins 2 for 1. So you probably don't want that rook ending. I think, although, do you? Because if you take B7, white gets both in time. So okay. I guess this is worth considering. Anish is ultimately declining doing it. Plays King F2.
Okay, on the board. Good move. Still very much a game. Still very much a game, and black still very much in the defensive here. E takes F3, but after G takes F3, Danny, the bishop can drop back to C6, and I'm not actually sure that Anish Giri will be able to defend the D4 pawn. This is looking really grim right now for Anish. He needs a big mistake from Denis Lazavik. He needs some sort of a nervous move in order to garner real chances here.
Yeah, let's analyze that, because I think it's trickier than it first looks. The best move here, according to the engine, is bishop takes F3. But the reason is if G takes, as Don just said, bishop C6, you can play King E3, but here comes a draw. And the reason is that after check, you can't go to D3 because bishop B5 and it's game over.
Exactly.
And if you go to D2, we just head right back to D8 and you're in a similar spot. So, although maybe he can go to C3 at the end of the line.
Yes, I think this might be the best chance, and he's made a move.
Yeah.
And it is, let's see what he's captured with.
Ooh.
He has captured with...
No, he took with the pawn, but Lazavik didn't go for bishop to C6. Instead,
which
King
is
F8.
Fine. Nothing wrong with King F8. I mean, he's maintaining the status quo, and right now he's basically asking Anish, like, where is the win going to come from? And now I would give a check on E8 and go back to D8, or go back to E7, potentially. Go up to E7.
Yeah, and also asking Anish, where's the advantage, right? Because guess what?
There is none.
The time advantage on the clock is all but gone.
It's all but gone. I don't see this working out for Anish. Rook back to E8. The bishop endgame is a dead draw. Black has 0 problems there. Anish needs to play rook C5. He needs to just try to outplay his opponent, and at this point, an equal endgame.
Yeah.
Played it. Okay.
Gonna try to keep the pieces on the board, keeping hope alive. Not really. Most likely a draw. Denis Lazavik.
Look at the clock situation also, Danny. It's now fully equalized.
Yeah. Mr. Lazavik sent Hikaru Nakamura to Division 2 and might be about to do the same to Anish Giri. The youngster.
Incredible.
I wanted to say the youngster from down under, but he's not from Australia. The Belarusian youngster.
Okay, A6 now. Simply defend the pawn. And the key for Denis is not to panic here. The key is not to start feeling nervous, not to start, spinning the narrative in your mind. Oh, this is how close I am. Just play chess. Just play it as you would any other endgame. And he is a fantastic endgame player. I think he's got this completely under control. He's now up on time. King E6, King D6. I think Anish needs to try bishop C4 at some point, but it's all kind of a one-move threat. This is amazing.
Agreed.
Oh, but okay. But okay,
what? Where's the threat?
Okay, yes.
Okay, you could have played rook d7, but this is simple enough. And who's going to be playing for a win here in a minute? Yeah. Probably black, given that he's up on the clock.
I don't like rook c2 though. Okay, rook c2 is a very concrete move. Maybe I do like it. No, rook c2 and simply he's going after the a pawn. Okay.
I don't. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm turning around the thought that all black needs is a draw here. And again, I think that a lot of this comes back to the great bid from Denis Lazavik to put Giri in a position to win as white, not something Anish Giri probably likes to do. And
amazing. Just amazing.
Clinical. Denis Lazavik, clinical.
It felt like Anish had no chances from the start of this game. Now look at the clock. Yep. He's down 40 seconds. So Denis Lazavik has the luxury of taking his time, and he's probably going to take the pawn on a2. My guess is that we're going to see bishop c4 by Anish, trying to get it into something like an unbalanced rook endgame. But even the move rook to a5 here, just keeping the bishop on d5, I think is good enough to hold the draw. Amazing.
Amazing. And the eval bar is only equal if white chooses the forcing draw lines. But reminder, we're in Armageddon here. A draw, and Denis Lazavik wins anyway. So don't be surprised when that eval bar quickly shows that black is winning when Anish Giri refuses to let the game end peacefully. So just fantastic chess. A fantastic day from Denis Lazavik right now.
And I would say the last hurdle right now is this rook endgame, because white is down a pawn, but white does have a rather menacing set of pawns on the queen side. d5 check, king to e7, and rook b8 can be tried by Anish, and he is threatening the move c6 here. So Denis needs to be a little bit careful. King d7, maybe just stop the rook from infiltrating to the 7th rank. Yes, on the board. King e7, just go back. But okay.
But black also could have just checked, because if white ever goes to e5, it's checkmate in the end with f6.
Wow, great spot.
So, I mean, black could just check, check, check. And again, if you're checked on d4 and try to hide, that's f6 checkmate.
Wow.
So, okay, Lazavik doesn't go for it. Is c6 check a move? No. King c7.
Well, d6 is a move. Maybe you could try d6, and I feel like it's gotten a little bit scarier for Denis Lazavik. Anish Giri knows that objectively he doesn't have much, but he has to find a way to tighten the screws, make it as practically difficult as possible for Denis. Although d6, rook b5, and then king d4. So my vote is d6 here.
Yeah.
Gotta try it. Gotta try
it. You're saying there's a chance.
He's done it. Good move.
He does it.
Okay. Now maybe a5. Denis can basically do nothing here, but that's always kind of hard to make yourself do when you're on the verge of panicking. So still some work to do for black. Rook b5 allows king to d4. So you can't win the pawn directly.
Yeah. And you definitely don't want the king to get to d5. That would be a problem. You could try to push a5 and go for a race. Giri hoping for absolute fury. Working our last subscriber's name into the commentary here. Over for some absolute fury on the chessboard to keep the fire alive. Okay. Shout out to the 60-month subscriber.
But all of a sudden, this is getting complicated for Denis. Rook to c4 is an excellent move, though. Going after the c5 pawn and temporarily sacrificing actually a bunch of his pawns. But as long as he can eliminate the c5 pawn, I think he should have enough to draw the game.
Yeah, if c5 falls, d6 will come with it. And what's funny is, even if somehow white wins both of these pawns, in theory, this is also a drawn ending as long as the king is within striking distance. You can't win with the split corner and bishop pawns. Yeah. Okay, that's not necessarily what Lazavik is shooting for, especially with no increment, but it is something to keep in mind.
It is indeed. And now 90 seconds for Anish Giri as he desperately tries to find a way to keep the game going. Rook takes b7, rook takes c5, rook takes h7. Lazavik will just slide his rook over to d5. And now flagging is more or less off the table. Anish Giri investing the rest of his time to figure something, any way to keep the game going. Rook d5.
Flagging is off the table for Anish, not necessarily off the table for Denis at this point. I mean,
that's right.
Okay, you can take h4. You can also play rook d5. I think Anish even knows that this one is out of reach to expect a dub.
I mean, Denis more than happy to give up the g6 pawn for the d6 pawn and get a Philidor position. The last hurdle for Denis, I would play g5 here and swing my rook back to h6. Just get rid of that d pawn. You could also go rook a4 and rook a6. I mean, I find it very difficult to imagine a way that Black could lose this. The only thing you should do is be careful on the clock. Make a move. Also good. Also great.
Yeah. Simple enough.
Yep.
Rook retreats.
Rook
the rook
E5,
inches
rook
its way
F6.
over. D6.
And Denis is not even going to give up his pawn, Danny.
No.
Denis is not even going to give up the G6 pawn. So that's it. This is over.
He doesn't need to. Honey Badger takes what he wants. He's going to take D6 without giving up G6.
And I mean, he's 30 seconds up. Only Denis can flag his opponent. Barring a rook blunder, this is a draw. Always a little nerve-wracking. Always a little nerve-wracking. Look at Anish. He's doing his best.
I love your pure excitement. But speaking of excited, Denis Lazavik, the kid, sends home Hikaru Nakamura. Not home, sends him to D2. Anish Giri will join his fellow 2800 Club member. Are we looking at a future member of the 2800 Club? Denis Lazavik gets the job done, draws with Black. Pretty sure he's nodding to our fair play team. Shout out to the event staff making it happen behind